possess all the facts that they need and understand them as well, the perils, the prospects, the purposes of our program, and the choices that we face.
I'll tell you what's the most disturbing thing uh, within a so-called Christian country is there's a certain programming that has been put into play very effectively that and it probably ultimately goes back to the creation of the IRS and the Federal Reserve. On the IRS side, uh, we have these decisions that in order to get a tax deduction, you have to be apolitical. Your church activities, your religious activities have to be apolitical, and you can't politicize from the pulpit. Well, that wasn't the history of the church from its inception.
No.
Certainly, the people that came here and founded the country, the Pilgrims, they came here to escape the tyranny of the bloodline families, the royalty who ruled and reigned by right of blood.
That's right.
And who, that's why we had a Magna Carta and things like that to restrict and restrain um, these bloodline families from controlling the lives of men. And
Yes.
that there was a religious freedom which was required in order for a nation to come together, a nation state to exist, that had to be in compliance with the laws of God. So when we look at what happened with the IRS and the way that the laws evolved, and you had to be apolitical and you couldn't take a stand on political issues from the bench, uh, another way of saying it is the church had lost its saltiness. And if you've lost your saltiness, you're not even good for seasoning. You're just, be thrown out on the ground. You have no
Yeah.
value in society. Uh, the church has lost that. And there is a component if you are freedom of religion goes hand in hand with freedom as a people in the country. And our um, uh, political freedom is a byproduct of religious freedom, not the other way around. And so we have to not allow the 501c3s, the churches that'll abide by that and take their tax deduction. Um, I would contend at this point in time that every church council, not just the pastor, church council has to consider, are we going to abide by that supposed restraint, which is not lawful? Um, we take our donations, they're tax deductible to the people that give them because we stay apolitical. Is the little bit of write off on your taxes worth the loss of freedom to talk about political things that may affect your ability to parent your child, such as maybe your kid isn't going to decide that they want to be mutilated to fit somebody's social agenda. But what about the other children in the proximity in the neighborhood who may not have the assistance, the inner strength, the church, the friends to push back against these forays of the devil and his minions?
Yeah.
And then are mutilated in this way. Their life is destroyed going forward just because of propaganda, because they were vulnerable, because they were young minds. And now it damages a whole community.
Yeah.
It drills holes in the foundations of America.
Well, I want to kind of add to that a little bit. And for folks tuning into the show today, if you haven't if you haven't checked out Juan's book, Kid by the Side of the Road, I definitely encourage you to go to gumroad.com, I believe, and you could pick up a copy. But because in there, it'll kind of give you a better understanding and context as to what Juan is referring to in this episode. Because a lot of it, if you look at it over a span of time of how a global cabal or a global syndicate had an agenda to infiltrate America and other countries, you would could kind of understand in the timeline, and even just something in the last 100 years, for example. Juan was just talking about the President Kennedy conspiracy and what they were planning around him, and how he was really disrupting the financial sector of our country at the time, which could have led to to his assassination. But then you had Johnson just kind of slide right in there, and what Juan is referring to is the Johnson Amendment, which does kind of capture the American church and muzzle them and kind of put them in a corner when it comes to their nonprofit status and what they can and can't say. And if they want to lose that status, it puts them in a bind. But it just seems like, in theory, that was a sort of a strategy. And who knows, how long they had been planning that if you could muzzle the American church. And if you look back in our history, I mean, all of the planning that went into, combating even against the redcoats. I mean, they were talking in taverns and they were talking in churches way back then, and whenever our country, became our country. So it's almost like they were just trying to plan a way to muzzle the American church. Would you agree?
Yeah, and by the way, um, let me just transition a smidge. I mentioned also the Federal Reserve. Um, what is the way that you denominate your wealth? You live in this world, it's a gift from God every day that you're alive. To be able to have work to set your hand to trade moments, hours, days out of your life into some kind of a labor, uh, be it farming or something with wood and carpentry, uh, any kind of an activity going back to the early days, fishing, feeding people, and then you exchange your life energy, your work for something someone else has. Uh, you can fish, and the other guy's a good carpenter. You trade food, and he gives you, you know,
A
uh,
table or something. Yeah.
but sometimes you don't need what the other guy has to offer. And so we have intermediate things that we have that we agree have value, silver and gold, for example. And that's a medium of exchange. And of course, constitutionally, that's going back, not just America, but other, civilizations, way, way, way back, Rome and Egypt and Babylon, etc. They had coinage, silver and gold, which you could exchange, and then maybe I want meat or some other thing, steel, something that iron that somebody else can make, and so he doesn't need my fish, and I can't find a third intermediary to do a three-way trade. It's just clean. We would trade for silver and gold. But with the creation of the Federal Reserve here in America, it'd been tried a couple of times with paper currency and like that. This was the latest variation. You would get, instead of getting the silver or gold, you'd get a receipt for silver and gold that was on deposit so that it was easier to transport, supposedly safer to transport and invest and park at the bank, etc. But that paper, Christ said, give unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, whose image is on the coin. Whose image is on the paper that we transact, and what hidden images are on the paper that we transact? You see, the currency is covered in talismans of occult meaning and origin. So you trade moments, days, years of your life for these talismans of occult meaning and add to their meaning by denominating your life energy according to these occult signs and symbols. You may not have tattoos on the skin on your body, but you carry these tattooed symbols which have meaning in the occult world in your pocket, in your bank accounts, that you've traded the most valuable thing that you have ever been given, your life itself, from God in this world, for these talismans of the occult and of evil. And marking your time here in the way that these occultists think. They think that if you've traded your life energy to promote their means and methods, their connections, that you've somehow allowed them, again, to have some force of your life for their purposes. That if you obey their commands, innocent as they may sound, you are now under their spell, within their magic. And when you go back to the creation at Jekyll Island of the Federal Reserve and the IRS, these were Satanists. The location.
Jesuits, right? Were they Jesuits?
Well, they were secret handshake people, a couple different groups. One of the interesting things about Jekyll Island is that whole area in there. The natives that had been there before the men came in and placed their very expensive homes there, was that these were locations where cannibalism was practiced. Literally, the houses were built on the graveyards and fire pits of this cannibalistic tribe that had been there.
Wow.
It's like the UN building. Nelson Rockefeller, when he was looking for a property to put the UN on in New York, and they were debating, the Rockefeller brothers worked to create the UN, even while the World War II was going, something to replace the League of Nations, which hadn't worked out. And when Nelson Rockefeller found there was a huge plot where there'd been a slaughterhouse for 150 years, an animal slaughterhouse, he purchased that. There was a certain symmetry in their occult satanic practices in having that location for the site for the UN. And so over and over and over again, you find where we innocently accept things at face value that are actually much more sinister within these groups in their origins and the way that they think and function. And we can't be so naive anymore on these things. We have to, look, in the way that the temple in the Old Testament, the tent of meeting where men met God, sacrificed God to, reconcile themselves with God prior to Christ, bringing the perfect sacrifice himself, his blood, to reconcile us with God. The old tent in the Old Testament was just symbolic. But one of the symbolic aspects of the tent is that it had posts that were set into silver sockets. So they would lay out where the temple was going to be erected. And the temple was animal skins made into thick curtains and walls, being symbolic of the blood shed. And these silver sockets, like a stake, were put into the ground. And then the wood poles were put into those sockets that then carried the curtain or the wall of the tent of meeting in the structure that was put together. The silver sockets were a insulator from the earth to the temple of God. They separated one from the other. And in our life, it's almost impossible in this world to not, have the taint, just like the money. How are you going to function in society at this moment with the way it's set up? There's a certain, functionality that we have to be, salt and light and active in this world. So uh, we are insulated, and the silver is actually symbolic of the blood of Christ, also, by the way, uh, and forgiveness. And it is a sterilizing agent, kills bacteria and viruses and like that. And so this silver insulator between us and the world, Christ himself, his temple in our bodies, but insulated from the um, pollutants in this world. Uh, there's a certain symbology there that we're in the world, but we're not of
the world. That's right.
The temple is not of this world, even though it's in the world. And so we have to find those places where we we acknowledge that we are separated from, and we work and strive to separate our actions and our life from the things in this world which are not of God, and to strive to put the weight and importance on the things of God in this world.
Yeah. Amen. And real quick, guys, we're going to be wrapping the show up here pretty soon. But before we go, Michael, you had another question for Juan. We talked about off air regarding Gen Z that you wanted to ask him, which I thought was a great question.
Juan, making America great again is the goal, and it's underway. But we got to hand it off to somebody. And I just want to know what your opinion is on, Gen Z are a group of kids that have grown up with conspiracy theories in place of where you and I had Bugs Bunny and Wile E. Coyote. And they've learned to navigate this world, through COVID and all these things. And so they're more like authenticity hunters rather than truthers, the ones that are searching. What would you say to them as far as giving them something to hope for and to encourage them on their quest to seek out authenticity, and where should they look to find that?
I had the benefit of some guys that took me under their wing. It's a very wild, unusual thing for me personally that I wouldn't expect to be duplicated with anybody else. But the thing that happened in being exposed to these guys as a young kid, men of conscience that had access to power in this world in lots of different levels, and of faith. Not all of them, but most of them. I got to hear the stories that where they were not just questioning, but railing against the powers that be and the way the world was working and things that they'd seen and things that needed to be done to change the course of history. And many times I would get told, well, you're going to have to fix this. We won't get it fixed in our lifetime, but you got to stay on point. It's your generation that'll either pick up the baton and go, or, fall and get trampled. So it's in your hands. I won't live long enough to see the end of all of this. And that's true. Most all of those guys, I think every one of the early ones is gone now, when I was in my teens. And, but I often comment that I'm like a message in a bottle, because the things that they were able to tell me and to, you know, kind of set in my mind over time, I've had to ruminate over it and see it start to come to pass. Civilizations go through relatively predictable cycles, and we're at that phase in the cycle. Imagine the pilgrims that came here in Europe with the royal families and the pushback, the creation of the Magna Carta, forcing that these families had to accept that the people had a destiny and value, and that they were not just chattel, slaves, just because people were born with the silver spoon in their mouth type of thing. We've gone through an evolution to create this country, and a devolution, a dissembling as power centralized and aggregated in a few hands. That is now being fought. And even with technology, AI, extremely advanced weaponry, robotics, the reality is God will not allow that evil wins the day and prevails. God has provided a path forward. He promised Abraham that his children of faith, would be as the sand of the seashore for number, and as the stars in the heaven for number. And by the way, there's more stars in all the galaxies that we can see than there is grains of sand on all the beaches across the world. It's an unfathomable number. And so God says that we're here for an extremely long time, not just millions, but billions of years as we build out this, universe. And I venture to say that all the men that have ever lived, and women and children in the history of the world, this beach down here has more sand than there have been people that have ever lived on this planet thus far. And this is just a tiny beach in this whole world. Abraham was told that his children of faith, he was the father of the faithful, would be more than all the sand on all the seashores in the whole world. So is there a future? Yes. Is there a place for everybody in this Gen Z to be part of that future? Absolutely. We have drama ahead, but by faith, we know that God knows his plans for us, plans for good and not for evil, plans for a future and an inheritance, a blessing of God. So that evil men, the devil himself, want us to not enjoy that. These parasites that seek to suck the life out of us for their own engorgement. There's a limit to that. And the day of evil has a limitation. God will put it to an end and bring it to its end. The Gen Z people have a future that's unbelievable, unfathomable to any generation that's ever lived thus far. We won't end at the shores here on the earth, but the next step is to the edge of the atmosphere and beyond. And great cities, great civilization will continue out as we build out our planet and then go out through our solar system and beyond. It's going to be amazing. And I hope to be here for at least part of that. And I'm looking forward to it. Jen and I are. I believe that's the future. I want to be part of it. I want to pass things along. So even in talking in these types of broadcasts and the work that you guys are doing, I hope to get a chance to put some of those messages into this generation's lives and minds, that they'll take, form out, build out, and do amazing things with the science, the other physics that isn't taught in the regular courses in the universities that you have to be invited to. As people understand how to access the resources, we barely scraped the surface of the planet. There's riches that people can't even imagine yet available as we build out technology and things. And yeah, there's some challenges with AI and other things that we'll have to work our way through. But by God's hand, the devil won't prevail, neither will his minions. Um, I have high hopes, and I think it's beautiful things out in the future. And why do I have that? Because God does. He isn't going to give us over to the devil. You ask for bread, he's not giving you a stone. You ask for fish, he's not giving you a serpent. He has a beautiful future for us. We just have to um, set our sights like Christ on the water, on him, and not on the storm and the wind and the waves and everything else. Uh, and we are going to prevail. These dark entities and forces, the devil himself, will be cast into the pit for 1,000 years. And the world's going to have a moment of peace, 1,000 years of peace. And then we'll move on from there by God's design. This generation, Gen Z, is almost certainly the one that will see the return of Christ, peace brought on the earth for that 1,000 years. And they will be changed in such a way that they suit God's purposes in building out mankind according to his will before the devil came in and messed it up. Let's go have some fun. I'm looking forward to it. This isn't a dark moment. It's an amazing moment. And you want to be on the right side of history. Even in that millennial period, whatever things happen in this moment, the scripture is clear. The dead in Christ, the believers, are raised first, and then the living are caught up to join the army of God, army of Christ, as he returns and brings peace to the planet and continues on. There's an amazing history just ahead. Every kid watching this, every young adult watching this, should be encouraged to hold fast at this exact moment, because you're that amazing, anointed, special generation that is going to receive the baton for all the beautiful things God intends moving forward for the children of the faithful in restoring peace to the planet. Is there drama ahead in the meantime? Yes. But getting the opportunity to be in the fight, to be on the right side of the fight, real warriors look forward to being in the fight, to being counted. You should want to be the Gideons of this age and Gideon's army of this age, and be praying to be part of this amazing moment that God has just ahead, and not to be hiding under a rock in a cave, unseen, hoping not to be noticed. Be noticed, get on the right side of history, enjoy the blessings that God has for you, be counted, and there's amazing things for you as a reward. God is a rewarder of the faithful. He rewards those who are faithful. Be faithful and get a reward. It's going to be amazing.
Amen, Brother Juan. Thanks for that. You guys, I'm going to go ahead and call this thing to a close, but we hope to bring Juan back on the show in days or weeks to come. We got so many things we could talk about, man. We could be on this thing for hours. We got, I got questions about, the move of Space Force headquarters from Colorado over to Huntsville, Alabama. I want to ask him about Trump's tie choices that he's been wearing on all of his different excursions around the world. What do these tie colors really mean? And this is something I want to talk to Juan about. Why is the big new beautiful bill incorporating things that tie AI into functionality of government? these are questions that I have, and I'm sure Juan has some insight on. I also want to let our viewers know that coming up here pretty soon, we have the Rev 17 conference. And for those who don't know, I do public relations when I'm not doing podcasts. I do public relations for Peace of Heaven. It's like Peace of Heaven, Children's Paradise. And what we are dreaming and believing in is that that we want to attack the enemy head on through fighting against child trafficking here in California. And what we're going to do is we're doing a fundraiser, and it's called Rev 17, and we're going to bring in some of the best soldiers in this battle who are fighting right now against child trafficking in America. I'm just going to go down a quick list of some of the speakers that we have here. We have Pastor Troy Brewer coming out from Texas. We have Laura Logan. She's coming out. We have Mark Anthony, Lee Dundas, Jeff Zink, who's done amazing work down on the Arizona border. We have Kim Yater, Mary Crowley. She's amazing in Southern California. She's definitely she has a prophetic gift, that's for sure. We have Greg Phillips coming to speak. He was very much involved in some of the ways that they had stolen our election. Louis Herms, he's coming. We have Pastor Dave Scarlett. He's the founder of His Glory TV. Ilanka Deaton, she has an amazing testimony of how she was trafficked from South Africa. She was a musician. She was an artist, a young artist who was being trafficked by her manager. And so she has a very amazing testimony to share. Dr. Doug Frank's going to be there. Retired Colonel Doc P. Chambers, he's going to come by. We have Dr. Henry Ely. He's involved with Dr. Artis and the healing of the ages and all the real types of modalities that are going to be hopefully helping the children in the process of recovery and restoration. We have Dr. Christiane Northrup. She's coming. We have Craig Salman Sawyer. We have Tina and Basil Baz. They're coming out, and they're going to talk about their Association for Child Rescue. They have a great organization that's going state by state, county by county to get people certified and ready and equipped and being needed in the future for helping to rescue children. We also have Kathy O'Brien, and she's done amazing work with getting out her story onto different outlets for many years. Her story is quite impressive, and she's going to be dropping some bombshells at the Rev 17 conference. That's what she told me. We have Hope Beryl Green. She was actually trafficked through the Epstein honeypots, situation with Epstein Island. We have amazing people are going to try to come. Ann Vandersteel is going to try to come. We'll see. She said maybe I'm going to try to do it. But yeah, that's quite the lineup. And every dollar spent, if you're going to attend in person, we'd love to have you. It's at the Church of Glad Tidings in Yuba City, California. Your nearest airport would be Sacramento. Every dollar that will be spent at the Rev 17 conference is going to go towards purchasing the Leo Chesney Center, which is a facility about 5 miles from the church. And it's a perfect place to transform into a paradise for these beautiful children that we're going to seek and rescue and bring to safety. So if you can make that, it's June 20 through the 22nd. Coming up here in just a few weeks. If you can't make it for whatever reason, you'll definitely be able to find it online. We're going to be streamcasting it through many different outlets, along with the speakers who are coming. They're going to be linking up with us on the broadcast, so you should be able to find it for free on X, Rumble, and elsewhere. And at the end of the day, if you could just pray for what we're doing, pray for these children, pray for the mission, pray for the restoration of our country and all those who are getting involved in this battle. I'd just like to thank Juan O'Savin for coming on our show today. And Michael, I know you're normally out there farming pistachios, but you made some time to join our broadcast today, Michael. So I really do appreciate that. And I hope to be getting you back on soon, Juan, if that's all right.
Of course, and I appreciate a chance to talk with your audience. And I wish I could join you at the conference. I'm out of the country in that particular time frame. As you know from our conversations back channel before we started, I have stuff going on in Africa that's just extremely urgent. And we're trying hard to stop some of the mayhem there. So Yeah.
Well, may God be with you on that mission, and we can only imagine the kinds of attacks that you're having, and the things you're trying to sort out in different regions of the world. And we really are just blessed to know you, and we hope to just be with us in whatever capacity you can be in, because you're a part of our family too, just like Tina Peters, and we hope to have you back soon.
Yep. It's a team effort. We're all on the same team. This is a team effort. Nobody gets to glory glom. This is if we succeed, we succeed together. So that's what we're
That's
trying to
right.
do.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Juan. Thanks, Michael. We'll talk again soon.
It's our obligation to inform and alert the American people, to make certain that they possess all the facts that they need and understand them as well, the perils, the prospects, the purposes of our program, and the choices that we face.